And it's on, and we're live. Welcome, everyone. It's so hard to resist the urge to say every pony. I'm so out of breath. I ran here. Welcome, everyone. Today, we have a wonderful show planned out for you today with our recurring guest, Sara, and our beautiful, fabulous special guest, Nulli, who is...
Hello.
Lots and lots of people have seen and heard from her before. I need a minute. Actually, I was surprised because everyone knew who you were already, and I was like, I feel left out. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's Nulli, she's back. And I'm like, I have no idea who she is. So that was like why I wanted to go in and pick your brain. And I watched your Heretics Corner episode 1. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It was beautiful, very informative.
Thank you.
And it just, and I watched your thing you did with Vidu live. And as I was watching,
I'm just pimping myself out at the moment. I'm just pimping myself out.
Exactly. You're jumping in even the little channels. Mine is tiny.
Oh, that's okay.
It just made me like so curious. I wanted to know like your story and pick your brain, because you said one thing about your parents taking you out of school, and as the moment you said that, I was like, bing, whoa, it's not just me, it's not just Sara. Like this seems to be a recurring thing. If they're not taking you out of school, they're either like putting you in a school that's not optimal for your education. I've heard from other people's story. But anyway, let's get into it. I have a tiny list of questions. Sara has some questions as well.
Yeah, of course.
But we're not, you can just let it flow. Feel free to, if there's anything that you feel uncomfortable about and you don't want to answer, that's fine. We'll just like skip over it and just let it go. How much time do you have? Like, I think
I have a lifetime.
No, I mean like for the next hour, maybe a little bit over that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool, perfect. Because I can be here all night.
Yay!
So I had asked before, like how that came about, like when you were taken out of school. How old were you? What grade were you in? How long did that last for? And tell me about your education experience or lack thereof.
Yep. All right. So, if your viewers aren't aware, hi, my name's Nulli. I'm amazing. You should subscribe to like everything that I do and am. And we know, as always, that I'm going to make this channel. No, I'm joking. So basically, my mum converted to Islam, and she was kind of not wanting us to go to school even from prep. So that's like before grade 1. And then so basically she ended up falling pregnant, and she was like, well, I can't look after kids and be pregnant for some reason. She was like, I'm going to put you in school. So it's pretty much like an ongoing thing. I'd be in school for like 6 months, and then she'd take me out for 6 months, and then be back in school for 6 months and take me out for 6 months. And so I never had like what you would call like a steady education. And then it was only when I was grade 6, so I was 11, where she was like, oh, you don't need to go to school anymore. So, and then basically she was like, no, you don't need to go to school, because I can teach you everything you need to be taught, because, the evil West are corrupting you, and just, basically that's basically why.
So she was trying to take you away from the education itself, like the teachers. She wasn't blaming like the peers and the being around Kafirs. It was like the teachings itself that she had a problem with.
Yeah, exactly. And when obviously she couldn't control what I was being taught, she approached our school. So I went to a public school, so a secular school. And she approached them because some Christian parents had approached the school and said that they want their kids to do like Bible studies. And so these kids were doing Bible studies, and she was like, okay, well, if these kids can do Bible studies, I want there to be an Islamic class. So every week in a secular school, we had to go and attend basically an Islamic studies class. So that was a way she could like kind of dictate what I was learning in some aspect of maintaining control over what I was learning. And this particular school now, like I've recently gone online and looked at it, because as we do, we always like to see how our old schools are looking. They now have a Muslim student uniform. So like all the girls wear like, basically it's in the school colors, but it's like salwar kameez, and they have like school uniform, like hijabs that are school in school colors and everything. And I'm just sitting there going, oh God.
I feel you. I look back at my old school too. I went to an Islamic school. So
yeah.
Yeah, we sure did. That place was torture. So wow, it's like she changed the school itself to accommodate her. That kind of reminds me of how I was little, and my grandma told one of my brother's teachers that his teacher was allowed to hit him. So he said that his teacher used to like have a ruler and take all her frustration out on him because she wasn't allowed to hit the other students. That shit's crazy.
Jesus. Well, see, like okay, in Australia, like that's like a big no-no. Like they got rid of corporal punishment and like spanking of kids, a few years ago, probably like 20 or so years ago. But like, yeah, in the Muslim schools here, there's definitely been cases where like a boy showed up to school with like longer hair, and the teachers have like cut his hair off in school, and girls have been like put into detention or suspended for rocking up with like with that eyeliner or mascara on. Yeah.
Oh, we have similar stories.
Yeah.
You got a demerit. I remember the teacher would always say, "Yeah, a demerit, a demerit."
Oh yeah, I got detention because I couldn't afford sneakers for gym class, so I showed up without sneakers, and I got put in detention because I got a full-time job, and I have all the money in the world to buy myself sneakers, so I got punished for being poor.
Do you remember that teacher, or no, she was the principal, and say, "Do you have a deficit? Do you have a deficit?" Like she would say that as if that's like as if.
Oh, she means like a mental deficiency.
Yes.
Wow.
And I always thought about it, and I was like, that's not even I don't feel that's a proper sentence, but okay, Mrs. Principal.
Half of them have like broken English. And I want to say something. That's like the Islamic school we're talking about, and she's talking about a like standard school. So anytime me and Sarah mention school, we're talking about Islamic school essentially.
Oh, you don't even want to know like about the Islamic schools here.
Yeah. I bet they're like 10 times worse.
There's
wow.
I recently was giving a speech at a conference in Melbourne, and I spoke about Islamic schools. And because my stepdad was a Islamic studies teacher, and he was an imam, so he was teaching at Muslim schools. And there's a Muslim school here that, I don't know, maybe they've removed it because of complaints to the council, but they had preparatory, which is, like I said, the grade before year 1, up to year 12 for boys, but for girls, they only had up to year 6. And then obviously a lot of parents were like, oh, we want to send our kids, we want our girls to still come to your school. So then they're like, okay, we'll allow your girls to come up to year 12, but they can only study these subjects, whereas the boys can study these subjects. And we're also going to build a literal wall in between the boys and the girl class students. Like I was like, holy shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, our school wasn't that
well,
bad.
no,
we
but
sat with
Sarah,
each other.
remember that she said that they dictated what subjects they could study.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that is true. The girls in our school were only allowed to study health while the boys got to do PE. So for a long time, we didn't have PE. So the girls are just supposed to sit around getting fat and studying out of like health books, and the boys got to be active and outside.
Just out of curiosity, did your schools have the rag room or the period room or the monthlies room?
No,
we didn't have that.
It was like a corner. It was like a corner of the musalla.
No. So there was, I think it's like a few Muslim schools in my city where I live. They had it was like a roll call for all of the female students. And in this roll call, they would check, and they have it was like literally a year's worth, like a school year's worth, and they would check. And then if you hadn't been in this room for over a month, they'd go and find you whenever like salat or prayers were on, just to see if you're wagging. And then they'd interrogate you as to like, oh, do you have your period? And if you did have your period and you came in and they checked you off, if your period went longer, I think, than like 7 days, they like interrogated you to see if you were actually you had to prove you were actually on your period.
That part is very true. Actually, I don't know if Sarah remembers, but they sat down and had like this long talk where I later found out that the teachers were like had like a chart, and they were keeping track of who was on their period or who was sitting out salats, and they were basically like having surveillance over the girls, which is very like creepy, and invasion of like privacy on another level. Where they had a chart of like who's been sitting out, and if girls have been, like you said, over a certain amount of time, like they would basically accuse them like, you guys aren't actually on your period. And I don't know, I can't explain to you how stressful that is, for viewers who don't know. I remember
it's invasive.
It's so invasive. My grandma did that to me, so I was kind of like not like used to it. But I remember this time where I was on my period, and she goes, "You're not on your period because you were on the 9th." And I didn't even know what to say, because at that age, like, I wasn't very educated about like my own body, so I couldn't say, well, actually that was spotting, and I didn't know that it was spotting, so I thought it was my period. Like, excuse me, can you get out of my pad right now?
Oh my God. I
But
remember
creepy.
sitting down and like, I mean, I think I like had a period for like a whole month because I didn't feel like praying. I didn't actually have a period.
You had
but,
your
like,
period for like 3 months.
Or if you like properly like you're like in Ramadan, you're like, oh, I had a period at the beginning of Ramadan, and then your period starts all of a sudden halfway through Ramadan, so you only fast for like 6 days.
Yeah. Oh, Ramadan, I don't think I ever really fasted that.
Oh man,
I tried.
It's so stressful. And one time my brother was like, "You're so lucky because you get to have a period, and that means that you get to have a break from Salat." And I'm like, these painful cramps I would trade for having to make prayer. Oh, I'm so lucky. Get out of my face. But we're well, sorry. I apologize to everyone. We got so derailed talking about periods. I'm so sorry.
Wait, I want to say something. I want to say something about me being in the Islamic school. I remember at some point, because I was there for such a long period of time, that I stopped giving a fuck. And like, I remember this teacher interrogating me about my period, and I think I just told her like, I don't like to pray, and I'm never gonna like to pray. And I'm gonna take off this hijab as soon as I leave this Islamic school, so fuck you, or something. I said something like weird.
Ballsy.
Do you remember you said like, basically, I don't feel like praying, so if I go and force myself to pray, it's not like I'm praying for Allah, it's like I'm praying for you or for Satan.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I think I
said I'm praying to Satan because I don't feel like praying to Allah right now.
But it was like praying to them, because I remember it was the secretary that I told that to, because the secretary was like making me pray sunnah.
Oh my God.
And she told me to pray sunnah, and then she would pray. I would have to pray the other sunnah. And I said, I mean, if it's sunnah, it's not like I have to do it. It's not required. I don't want to do it. I don't feel it in my heart. My heart is filled with, I'm not a good Muslim. And because I think I was there for such a long time where I didn't care what they think. I didn't care what they thought at that point. I was like, I don't care. I hate the school. I wish I could, I wanted them to expel me. I wanted them to kick me out. Like, that was my goal. Anyways.
Yeah, but it wasn't gonna happen. I mean, there were so many issues with school. Like I said before in a previous thing, just speaking about Islamic schools in general is like a whole other show, because we could get into it and talk about it for hours. Like, what a flawed system it is. How, for example, they didn't care about credentials of the teachers. Like, as long as the teacher was Muslim, that was it. The teacher could have been a high school dropout. In fact, they hired multiple high school dropouts. Just because they were Muslim. That was the only requirement that they had. And it was very detrimental to the education of children whose parents were paying thousands of dollars in tuition to send them to the school just to get taught by a bunch of uneducated, people, holy people.
I mean, I think a lot of people knew about this. It's just that they felt they had to have their kids there because they didn't want them to be corrupted.
It was a community thing, and then they didn't want them to be around the kafirs in the public school and start dating and have...
kids. Yeah, that's why they got their kids to leave the school as soon as possible. As soon as they were like in 10th grade, 11th grade, they went to the halfway,
or they would try to get them to graduate early so they could hurry up and go to college, because
And
like they knew that school wasn't good.
It was,
anyway,
I would argue that the school was good for some people. It was good for some people who wanted to skip grades, whose parents were really in the community, and
whose parents were supportive. And
because I remember there were
cared about their education.
There were people who were 3 years younger than me, and they were like in a higher grade than me.
So, they skipped grades like crazy. And it was really about like what connections you had and who you know and how good you're in the community, because they would give people grades just willy-nilly, like not based on their actual work. Like you could be in there and not do a single speck of homework but have high grades because you were part of a certain clique of from this Palestinian family or from this other family in the community that had a high standing. I mean,
basically
we all knew
it's the rich Arab kids plus their less fortunate friends that happen to hang out with them, but they also get perks, but as long as you hang out with the rich Arab kids, you good.
Yeah. All right.
I wasn't part of that.
On that note, yeah, me neither. That's why we clicked. So I'm gonna actually bring it back to center, and I'm gonna read some of the questions that I had previously put together. So the first question is: so how long have you been ex-Muslim now, Nulli?
Like I've said previously, is I never really felt like this deep connection to Allah. I just kind of obeyed because like parents are scary and beat the shit out of you. But I think I stopped believing in God when I was 15, but I didn't become open until I was 19, and that's when I left home.
So how long would you say that is? Like from now? 10 years?
Sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry. How old am I? 11 years.
Okay, good. Wow. 11 years. Like you.
So we're from 15. From 15, it's 11 years, yeah.
Oh, yeah, from 15. So you're counting from like when you first.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I remember you mentioning that you had like a definitive moment, something that happened that caused you to like, I don't believe in God anymore.
But I left home in 2011. That's when I became open. So the day I left home is the day I became open.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So my next question was, give us an idea of how, I kind of feel like I know the answer, how strict or liberal your parents were. Like, for example, did they hate gay people and feel they deserve to die? Did you find that they were strict in some areas and liberal in others, or just overall strict?
Oh, strict.
Like completely in every single aspect. Like, did they like not even let you listen to music or like?
No way. I remember one time we weren't allowed to watch TV. Okay, we couldn't watch TV because TV had music on it, and we couldn't like. If we were to watch a TV show or something like that, it had to be like approved by my parents prior to us watching it, and music was like a big no. Like I think one time, like I love music; it's one of like my favorite things, and I had like this little like MP3 player, which I recorded a song on the radio in my parents' bedroom, and my dad found it and he lost his, like my stepdad, sorry, he found it and he lost his absolute shit, and I had to spend like weeks begging for forgiveness. It was, niqab, the sunnah, the prayers all the time. So sunnah prayers, fard prayers. I wore the hijab from 7. Niqab was for me from 12, 13. Just trying to think of what else. It's always like head to toe black sort of thing, like gloves, socks. We couldn't laugh.
Even in the gloves. Jeez.
We couldn't wear, we couldn't speak loudly if there were men around because our voice is our aura. Like it was very like strict and controlled, like in that aspect. And then if we were to go like from a religious standpoint, gay, like they believed that the niqab was fard, so it's compulsory. Every woman has to wear it. Gays are unnatural and deserve to be killed. Apostates deserve to be killed. Like they believed that, they believed in like stoning adulterers. Like they believed in basically Sharia, like whatever the most extreme version of Sharia was, they would. And I guess you would call them like Salafi Wahhabis. Like I guess the best way
it's like the most extreme thing.
Yes.
Oh, wait, can I ask you a question? Where's your stepdad from? I mean, if you feel comfortable
Somalia.
in saying that.
Yeah,
oh yeah, they're strict as hell. Because I have a lot of Somali friends, and I've seen we had a sheikh, and he had little his daughters were so tiny. I mean, he had many daughters.
Yeah, was she like 4? His daughter was like at least 4 in hijab.
Yeah, it kind of annoyed me, just seeing them. Not like I felt like they couldn't even play as little girls or be little girls because they were being sexualized at such a young age, like 3, 4, 5. He had many daughters. I think he had like 5 or 6 daughters. So I mean, and the worst part is just to see the way that they treat their boys versus their girls. Like the boy, of course, he's gonna feel so comfortable, but the girls, they can't say anything about it because they're brainwashed from. I mean, obviously she's 3 years old wearing a hijab. She's never going to take that thing off, probably, especially from her culture.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope she does. I always hope that every time I one of my friends tells me I've been thinking about removing the hijab. I'm like, do it. Anyways.
So yeah, to recap, her stepdad was Somalian and her mom was a convert, so she was not culturally Muslim or like born into it or whatever.
I have another question.
Yeah,
about conversion. Okay. Do you think that your mother was more strict than average because she is a convert? Because the thing is, I noticed that people who are born Muslim, yeah, they can kind of be strict, but not as much as I've seen converts be. Because I've seen many converts and they're very strict and they're very detailed about everything and they want to follow it so bad. And I think it's because obviously they feel that they're not from that culture.
You feel like they have something to prove.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely agree with that. But I also like to, sometimes I kind of, it may not be a popular opinion, but when you look at, Pakistani Muslims or Palestinian Muslims or Saudi Muslims, there is kind of a culture that is slightly diluted Islam. So when you are a convert, so I know even converts who've married converts, and they are some of the most strict Muslims because they don't have any of that cultural influence into the Islamic teaching. So I think that's definitely a factor. But yeah, overall, converts tend to be more psychotic.
Okay, this kind of leads into my next question. So, so your mom is still married to a Somali guy, right?
No, they actually got divorced recently because how dare he marry a second wife?
Oh, okay. So is she single or is she marrying somebody else? Okay, she's single. Okay, so that
I don't know why I lulled.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, you should be very happy for his second wife. Come on.
No, see, that's the thing I've always pointed out. So obviously my family are aware that I'm ex-Muslim, that I'm an atheist, that I'm a devil worshipper. But I always found it so funny is that she would when I would try, when I first left home, I'd try to engage with her and explain, well, this is my problems with Islam. And she'd be like, oh, no, it's just them corrupting it and it's not the real Islam, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes and marries another woman and she gets so angry and so upset and how dare he betray her. And I'm like, but he's allowed to do it.
It's his right as a man. Don't you?
It's not even hadith. That is clearly in the Quran multiple times. 4 wives. This is only 2. He's just beginning.
So, so they were in Somalia when he married his second wife, and she was obviously pissed off and upset because he went and married this young, nubile, sexy little 18-year-old. And she's not happy because obviously he's now gone and married a woman who's younger than 3 of her children. So I honestly laughed when I found out. I was actually in hysterics.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
wait. He married a teenager, basically?
Yeah. Okay. She was 18. And he's 51, I think.
Oh my gosh, my heart.
Wow, he's old as fuck. Sugar daddy.
My aching heart. Okay, so this is wow, that is crazy. I mean, my dad married a woman 11 years younger, but that doesn't compare. Okay, so this is my question: do you think your mom has gotten a little more liberal in her beliefs, or could possibly do so in the future now that she's not married to him anymore?
Actually, it was my mum who was more strict than my stepdad.
Oh, so it was like she was pushing him and
Yes.
influencing him. And
So he was an Islamic scholar. So, you know, he's that person who grabs Tafsir ibn Kathir and can read the whole thing in Arabic kind of situation. Like he can read the Quran and be like, this is what this says, blah, 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 because he speaks, you know, Fusha Arabic. But he was more, I guess you could say, like, for example, my mum believed that the niqab was fard. You had to wear a niqab, whereas my stepdad was like, oh, it's wajib, it's compulsory. So they did have differing things, like beliefs, but they were still quite strict in the area. But with regards to my mum, even now, she's still a lot more strict than I would say than my stepdad is, even to this day.
Okay. I have one other question.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, what did your mom believe in before converting to Islam? I'm sorry if I sound like ignorant or you've already said that.
No. She was she was raised Irish Catholic, and then she kind of floated around all different kinds of religions. Then she became a born again Christian, and then she met some Muslim guys, and then they were like, "Oh, explain Trinity," and then she was like, "I can't explain Trinity." So then she went to a mosque, and then she asked an imam at the mosque, "Oh, can you explain your religion?" And he was like, "Oh, okay, this is what Islam says." And she's like, "Oh, this makes more sense than Christianity. I'm going to become a Muslim." And then she put the hijab on that day.
I mean, oh my God. Wow, she was so weak in her faith. Damn, that sucks. She should have stayed
it's
Christian.
kind of it's a running joke in like her family. Like I don't really speak much to my mum's non-Muslim family either because I never spoke to them growing up, so there's not like that familiar connection. But they've mentioned, they're like, "Oh, you know, this is your mum's longest phase."
Oh, well, hopefully she gets out of it soon. Now that the guy got married to another woman.
I don't think she will, because of who she was in the community. It would be a massive sacrifice to her social standing. It's not like she was like some like convert on the sides of the community and no one knows about. Like she's quite well known. Like when I even like to this day, people are like, "Oh, you're so and so's daughter." Like people recognize me and they know exactly who I am. And when I left home, I like even now, like I you know, I was running a blog and whatnot, and I was telling my story, and I had this girl reach out to me, and she's like, "Oh my God, are you so and so's daughter? Like, you're infamous in the Muslim community." And I was like, "Oh fuck, am I?" Whoops.
You know, it's funny. Like being the imam's daughter or like the sheikh's daughter or whatever is like the worst position to ever be in, because I have a friend. She's Lebanese or whatever.
I know exactly what you're
And
talking
her mom
about.
is a convert. Yeah. Like her mom is a convert, like from, well, I think she's from New York or whatever, but she's like a white lady. And you know, the funny thing is that her father wasn't even that strict. He's like a sheikh. Like he's strict, but like he wasn't as strict as her
Wait
mother.
a minute,
Her mother would
I'm not
literally
sure.
take.
Wait, is it the girl who used to show up to school with like
Yeah,
bruises?
beat up and stuff.
Okay. Like that, it was like no one was gonna report her abuse because he was impervious because he was an imam. So no one was gonna say anything. I mean, she showed
But
up.
I don't even believe he did that to her.
No, I know. I remember you saying that it wasn't her. I mean, it wasn't him, but like, didn't you say you thought it was her brother or something?
I think it was her mother and her brother who would, you know, break her things and beat her up and do all these things. And probably her family. I remember one time she ran away from home, and I was already in a very bad position. Like my stepdad was very strict with me, and I didn't even have a phone, and I couldn't even like tell him how I even knew that she ran away. But I managed to like somehow get her to come to my house and convince my stepdad that, you know, I just like on email or something, because I wasn't allowed to have Facebook or MySpace or anything. So she came to my house, and I remember the people kept calling because I guess she left my number, or like they found out that she was talking to me, and they kept threatening me. And they said, "We're going to take you to jail." And I said, "Okay, go ahead. I'm a minor. So what are you going to do?" She came over to my house. You know what I mean? I was like, just.
That's like the default thing, because it was like that time your stepdad threatened to call the cops on me. And I'm like, okay, I already told you, like, what you want to know.
Yeah, it's like nothing, bitches.
But I mean,
sorry, I just want to comment on something that's in the live chat. So we've got a Muslim proud to be made a comment that He's saying that in a marriage contract, a wife can forbid her husband from taking another wife. Now, that's actually incorrect because it's actually haram to forbid anything that is halal in Islam. So a woman can state in her marriage contract that her husband has to inform her of his choice to take another wife, but he doesn't have to abide by it, because you cannot forbid something that is halal or has been allowed by Allah. It is completely unacceptable. It's why my parents could stop me from having an education, even though Muhammad said, oh, you know, people should become educated. It's because technically what my parents were doing was not against Islam, because they were providing me with a different kind of an education. So it is a very nitty gritty kind of situation, because I know a lot of people have used that excuse when it comes to polygamy is, oh, but the woman can write in her marriage contract that her husband can't take another wife. You can't forbid them from doing that. You can't. It's allowed in Islam. You can say that your husband has to speak to you, like your husband has to speak to you about it. And if you are married to a nice guy, you know, like, and he can take your opinion into consideration, but you can't expressively forbid it.
Yeah, that's
sorry. I just had to say that before I forgot it.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
No,
that's
it's okay.
true. And then also, you know, where you said that your parents can, you know, stop you from your education. You have to be obedient to your parents, as long as it doesn't, as long as they're not telling you to do something that's against Islam, like as they're not to stop making salah or something like that. That's the only time when you're allowed to disobey your parents. So everything else, you have to listen to them, no matter how detrimental to yourself it can be. So obedience to your parents supersedes your own education and a lot of other things in your life. So that's a similar.
You know, I can understand why your mom became Muslim, because she comes from a Catholic background and they have this whole thing about obedience too. And I think they do. I think people convert to Islam because, or like Catholics or people, you know, Christians convert to Islam because it's so familiar to them. That I was actually arguing with this Christian guy recently, and he was telling me like there's nothing similar between Islam and Christianity. And I told him, no, they're like everything. Not everything, but like a lot of things are the same, and that's why it's so easy for people to convert. I don't know. I just had to say that real quick because
so we've already recorded the second and third episode for Heretics Corner, and our third episode we speak to Jen Sutton. Now, if you're not aware, that's the ex-Mormon, ex-Muslim, Murtad Millie on Twitter. And
are you talking about the guy with the red hair?
No. We're talking about Jen Sutton. She's on Twitter. Really lovely lady. So she was raised as a Mormon, and then she became Muslim. And we were talking about the similarities between, you know, like why people convert to Islam. And like for my mum's case, I believe it was because Islam gave her a reason to be who she was. Like, you know, sometimes you can't excuse certain behaviors that people have, whether they be hateful or racist or what, and they say they can hide behind a religion. And I think in my mother's case, it allowed her to be a very judgmental person towards other people. So, you know, I remember this distinctly, and it horrified me. Like I hated going out with my mum because she would always constantly be embarrassed. She was running a conference for Muslim women, and there was about 2,000 or so people there. And she was giving a lecture, and there was like a bunch of other people giving lectures. And then she was sitting down, and this young Muslim girl comes up to her, and she was wearing like this hijab and skinny jeans and a t-shirt, which is like, no, not in this Muslim community. And she's like, oh, you know, sister, I think your speech was amazing. It really resonated with me. I really loved it. And then my mum turned around and she was like, if it really resonated with you, why are you wearing jeans? Why are you wearing so much makeup? Why is your hijab so small? Like, and I feel like it gives some converts a outlet to be a hateful person. I think it gives some people, like, I'm not against people following a religion so long as they're not oppressing other people. Like, because I think some people out there need religion to function in society because they, for some reason, can't live without a book telling them what to do. And so I think there's that. And then there's obviously, you've got your typical girls that become Muslim because they're marrying a Muslim guy.
Oh my gosh, that's a huge percentage, isn't it? I feel like it's such a huge percentage.
I think a lot of the times girls become Muslim really because for girls, girls will become Muslim to marry the guy. And I think this is the funniest thing that happened to, because my mum, we kind of like pseudo adopted this girl who became Muslim, and she became Muslim because she was like in love with her Lebanese boyfriend. They've been together for 5 years. And then when she became Muslim, he dumped her because he couldn't have sex with her anymore. And then he said, oh, I'm not going to marry you because you're not a virgin, even though he took her virgin when she was like 15,
Yes.
like, you know.
Oh my God. That's what happened.
What a piece of shit.
I don't understand. And that's the other problem. Like these, okay, like I hate generalizing, but I've seen this so many times. And Sarah, like, you know what I'm talking about. Muslim boys, like, they go fuck around with like non-Muslim girls. They don't care. But then they turn around and they want to be picky. Oh, I can only marry a virgin. How many girls have you slept with? How many girls' virginities have you taken? How many virgins do you think there are? And what's so great about you that you deserve a pristine virgin? Like, get out of here. You're not a millionaire.
Yeah, I used to. Because I grew up with a Somali stepdad, but because of like who they were in the community, I grew up around Lebanese and Palestinians and Somalis, so basically everybody. And I used to have, now whenever I see like, you know, like Australian girls dating Lebanese guys, I'm like, you know, it's not going to last. He's going to dump your ass and go back to Lebanon and marry some 15-year-old cousin of his who's a virgin. Like, you do know this is what's going to happen.
You said cousin. Oh my God.
Well, it's actually it's really prolific throughout the community.
It's really common.
I grew up around like cousin marriages, especially Lebanese and Palestinians. It's like true. So common.
Oh, it's good sick. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. And then, okay, you said something earlier about some people need religion. And what that reminded me of
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was just gonna say that, you know, she was saying that some people need religion.
Oh, hey, am I still connected?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
You're just talking over me a little bit.
People need religion. Sorry.
We can hear her and she can't hear us or something. So anyway, I think a large part of that is that the reason people like to hold on, to cling to the idea of religion, and specifically Abrahamic religions that believe in an afterlife, is for comfort after a loss or grieving, because like I've noticed this firsthand. I've seen a video where a woman said when she became an atheist, she grieved her son twice, once when he first died and then the second time because she realized she wasn't going to see him again. And that was, some people just cling to that. It's like you believe something because you want to believe it, not because you have, you know, any logical reason to believe it or evidence or anything. And I'm gonna say something like really quick. I have an aunt and uncle who are pastors. I believe they're evangelical. And my aunt lost her son, and he was very young. And, you know, for a mom who loses her son, you just imagine, you expect them to be like hysterical crying. But she was like the most composed person you could imagine after just losing her son. And the reason, the simple reason for that is just because she believed she was going to see him again. She just kept reaffirming to herself, he's in heaven with the angels, and, you know, I'm going to see him again. And all this stuff, he's in heaven. So I mean,
I understand.
What kind of dickhead would I be if I was like, actually, he's not in heaven. There is no heaven. God isn't real.
Yeah,
like I'm
kind of the same thing. I'm kind of the same thing. Like, I was actually just watching the live show between Godless Mom and Skeptical Nikki and Mr. Oz Atheist, and I can't remember who said it, but one of them commented saying, oh, you know, but if we allow like the old grandma who doesn't harm a soul or whatnot to be like anti-abortion, she's going to vote in terrible people who are against abortion. And I'm just like, I understand where they're coming from, but also I feel like sometimes religion brings people comfort. So I mentioned it in my, I've mentioned it a number of times, but my sister's death was the critical moment for me, which is what made me leave belief in God altogether. And I remember, like, you know, my mum obviously devastated that her child had passed away. But she found comfort in like, oh, she's guaranteed to be in Jannah now. She's guaranteed to be in heaven because she was a child. And it's kind of like, do I want to be cruel enough to rip that comfort away from that person when they've already had that grieving moment? Because when I grieved my sister's death, but I never believed that she was in heaven because it was a quick succession that she passed away, and then I believed that there was no God and there was no heaven and nothing existed. But I found that I couldn't do the same to my mum. Like I don't necessarily get into philosophical debates whether there's a heaven or a hell or a God with her when I was speaking to her, because I feel like that would just be too cruel.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Like that was kind of my. I'm just going to reply to a question. It said, "I thought your family was Muslim." Yes, and I also said that both of my parents were converts. So you have to understand that my extended family isn't Muslim. In fact, the majority of my family isn't Muslim, and we're talking about grandfathers and one grandmother, and most aunts and uncles and cousins aren't. In fact, just my immediate nuclear family was Muslim. So so it was like half my family was like kind of pretty much Muslim, and the other half wasn't. Like half my family is very Christian because, like I said, they have their own church and they're like pastors. And then the other half, I said this before, and my mom married an imam, so I had an imam in the family. And my dad was very strictly Muslim, and then he had a lot of kids and stuff. So the Islam was just like first generational, just both my parents. My extended family wasn't. And I remember this one time asking my one grandma was Muslim and my other grandma was Christian. And I asked my Muslim grandma, like, if only Muslims get into heaven and like no Christians, are you telling me not even like a nice Christian could get into heaven? And she said, and I was like, is my Christian grandma getting into heaven too? And she said, I don't want to, say anyone is or isn't, but she believes in a Trinity. She believes in more than one God. So, it's very clear that that's shirk and she's going to hell. So she pretty much told me at like 8 years old that my other grandma was going to hell.
See, that was that concept was actually one of the first reasons that kind of made me not really want to be like a Muslim in that sense, because, and I've said it a number of times, it's where people, like, I couldn't comprehend why, like, my non-Muslim neighbor who was like so lovely and he helped everybody, why he was going to be burning in hell for all eternity and blah 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 blah. But then like the imam who beat his wife and treated everyone like shit and was a terrible human altogether, he was just guaranteed heaven. Like, I couldn't understand that either. And then I know they make that comment of like, oh, but Ahlul Kitab will be going to Jannah, and it's like, no. You're lying.
That makes no sense. If Ahl Kitab are going to Jannah, that means that all Christians and Jews will go to heaven as well. Like, why are we even fighting? Who cares? We can be any religion.
People the book all the time. And then it brings up this question where,
and also, are the Hindus
different schools of thought,
books too.
don't really agree on this about, can a good Christian have just as much likelihood or more likelihood of going to heaven than a bad Muslim, right? Because you and I know, like, people don't like saying, oh, what, there's a bad Muslim, but we all know what's a bad Muslim. A Muslim who drinks and smokes and has sex and doesn't mix a lot and barely like fasts or doesn't fast at all and doesn't do any of the things they're supposed to do, but just says they believe in God and that they're a Muslim. Because if you say you're a Muslim, then you are, just because you have that belief, even if you're not following the 5 pillars or any other things.
You're just Muslim by default.
Exactly. So, where do we draw the line? A bad Muslim can go to heaven over a good Christian. And, can you even be a good Christian because you believe in 3 gods? So, it was like this time I was in Islamic studies class, and the teacher said, when you go to Hajj, all your sins are purified and cleansed. You have a clean slate like a newborn baby. And I said, all your sins? And he said, all your sins. And I said, all your sins? And he said, all your sins, every single one. I said, so if I murder someone before Hajj, will that be cleansed? And he said, no. And I was like, but you just said all your sins.
No, didn't you know the difference between major and minor sins? Didn't you know this?
But you just lumped them together.
Can I say something? I had
almost all your sins. Go ahead.
I visited in a Muslim country, which isn't that Islamic. Like, it's just like they have the name of being Muslim, but they're not really Islamic. And I was hanging out with this girl who was my friend when I was a kid, and quickly I found out she's annoying and I don't like her. But anyways, before knowing all of that stuff, before knowing that she's annoying, one time she was like dating this old man, and then later on she told me he's a Hajj, and I was like, what? And he was like an old dude, and then she like actually like had sex with him and everything, and he was trying to get little girls, like not little girls, but I'm saying like he was trying to get like young women who are like, I don't know, like 18, 17. I mean, I don't know what, he could have been a pedophile, I don't know. But anyways, and he was trying to get all these women, and then later on I think she told me something like, oh, he's going to Hajj soon. And I was like, is he doing all of this bad shit before he goes to Hajj because he thinks his sins are going to be erased? Like, this is legit. Like, I mean, when I heard that, it like completely shattered everything. I was like, this guy, he's respected in the community as a Hajj, like a man who went to Hajj, yet he is having sex with like underage girls and paying them money and basically whatever. Like, that's why I stopped talking to her, actually, like, because she's, when I found out like she does stuff like that. Not that I'm judging anyone can do whatever the fuck they want, but I just didn't like her in general. Anyways, that's basically what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, we were on a call with a couple of Muslim guys that one time, and you had brought that up, that when you tell someone they can do this this act or whatever, and it's going to cleanse all their sins, it's like, okay, let me hurry up and sin as much as I can, because let me have a free for all so that I can go and get them all forgiven.
It's a massive or not, I'm gonna say it's like a misunderstanding. It's like it's a purposeful contradiction, because so for example, I've met so many gay Muslims and I'm like, oh, that's always my first reaction.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Yo,
and I'm like, and they're like to me, but if we repent, Allah will forgive our sins. I don't even bother touching on the fact that they know what when they have sex, it's a sin. But I'm like to them, you do understand in Islam that Allah will only respect your repentance if you promise to not do it again. You do know that's how it works.
Lily, remember like that gay dude? He's like a convert. What was he?
Yes.
What did he say? What is he like? What did he say he was?
He's
like, I'm an anti-colonial. Wait, what is it? Anti-colonial.
Latinx,
Muslim, Latinx,
queer, LGBT Muslim convert, this and that. And here's the thing about gay Muslims, right? I'm like,
they're fucking delusional.
You have. I always say, like, okay, you can pick one, but you can't have both, right? And obviously, it's like, okay, well, if they want to say being gay is not a choice, then being Muslim is a choice. You can't have both. You absolutely can't. I mean, I have a cousin who's gay, who was like a long lost cousin. I didn't meet him until I was like 21. And he wasn't even in the country, and I came and met him, and it was all cool. And I remember the day my mom introduced him, like she had him hiding out in the hallway, and she like gathered the family, and she was like, okay, I just want to let you guys know before he comes in that he's gay, but like I still want you to respect him. I love how she felt that she had to tell us we still had to respect him, because it was like she knew that she raised us to hate gay people. So, basically just undo your entire childhood right now and everything I taught you and all the hatred just because he's family. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
And he was so sweet and nice, and like I spent a lot of time with him and hung out, and I even like went to visit him in the summer and we hung out and stuff. And I remember I think he believed in God, but like the Christian version of God. But I remember him saying, I wish so much that that I could be normal. Like I want to, I would love to be able to marry a woman and have kids and have a family and stuff. But, and then he said something about going to heaven. He was like, I wish I could just be normal, have a family, go to heaven and stuff. But I know that God like won't accept me in heaven. And he started like tearing up.
How fucked up is that though? Like, how fucked up is that? Like, I don't know if you have watched our first episode of Heretics Corner, but one of my co-hosts, Dean, he made mention that, you know, he went to a Islamic youth camp, and there was a kid there, and he had a disability, and he goes, "Did Allah make me this way?" It's like,
yeah, he said if you God is punishing you. His dad said God is punishing you, and then the kid with the disability said, "Is God punishing me because I have this disability?" And then he was like, "I must have done something wrong." So he got like this guilt because that was the idea that they were giving
him for what?
It's like, no. You have to remember,
that, right?
if the kuffar, God only punishes the kuffar when something bad happens to them. When something bad happens to a Muslim, God is testing you. And this is the last thing, I swear, but like, actually, like, I did watch the entire episode of Heretics Corner, and like when you said something, it reminded me of like, okay, I want to say like almost 10 years ago now, I had a 2-year-old nephew who drowned in a swimming pool, and like after that happened, it would have made me question the existence of God if I allowed myself to think about it. So I purposely didn't even think about it because I wanted to blame anyone else. I wanted to blame like, oh, you know, that's their fucking fault for leaving him alone, and his parents weren't watching him, or whoever was supposed to be watching him isn't watching him. And too many times, you know, people, Muslims, and just religious people in general are like, you can't blame God. You have to blame people. The people are at fault. Okay, what's the point of even having a God who's supposedly all-powerful? Is he all-powerful? He can't be all-powerful and all good, because if he's all-powerful and he just sits back and watches terrible things happen, then he's not all good. Because if you were in the same position, you would prevent something terrible from happening, right? You're telling me you're better than your own God.
Like, I can't remember who said it, but someone said that if you're telling me that there is a God, then that God is letting, you know, children being raped and murdered and killed, and women being oppressed, and all these terrible things happening on earth. So even if he did exist, I still wouldn't worship him because he's a terrible person or a terrible being.
Yeah, because
I have a friend that said the same thing.
If he's all powerful, then he can't be all good. If he's all good, then he can't be all powerful, because he either he has the ability to stop it, or he won't, or he wants to stop it and he can't. You can't have both.
You know, I've argued this before with one of my Christian friends, because he was trying to he was trying to show me the gospel or something, or read the gospel to me or whatever. And then I kind of questioned him about some things that are kind of similar in Islam. And when I asked him, he was like, I said, are you telling me that all humans are just evil? He said every human has a seed of evil in them, and God put it there because when Adam and Eve ate the apple and disobeyed God, they came to earth. Yeah, no, I'm serious, and I'm thinking.
No, I just laughed.
No, this is true.
He put it there, like God put the seed of evil in them. I love it. Like all people are sinners. It's so.
And I argued with him, and I told him, I was like, if God made me a sinner, then why can't I just be evil? Can I just be evil? I mean, I'll join the Illuminati. Why can't I have everything that I ever wanted on earth? You know, like, what's the point of trying so hard if God made it this way? And also, like, going back to the Islamic thing, they say that you have a book before you're even born, before you even exist.
Yes, everything you have has been written down.
So how is that fair? So, it's like, how do we have free will? Because I was talking to him, like, we were kind of talking about Islam and Christianity at the same time, so it's kind of confusing. But I was telling him, like, in Islam, you know, you have a book, it's written before you even exist, before you're on earth. Apparently you're in some realm before you even get born. I think it's called barzakh or something. Anyways, so I told him, like, basically we have no free will. Literally, like, it's like everything that I'm doing right now, everything that we're doing right now, we're speaking and we're talking shit about God. About Allah.
Hey, it's not our fault. He wrote it. He wrote it.
Like, he wanted this to happen. That is actually something that we do go over in one of our upcoming episodes. You know, I mean. It's true though. It's like, okay, and the thing is as well, it's like, you know how they say, oh, you know, everything that, like, the moment you are conceived and you are nothing more than a blood clot, every single thing that you're going to do in life is has been written down. And then I'm like, okay, then what's the point of having the angels on our shoulders? If everything's already written down, why do the angels need to be writing our good and bad deeds?
Maybe they're recording what you do to see if you deviate, because if you deviate from the plan, then the whole universe will shatter.
Oh my god. Oh, the butterfly effect.
Yep.
I mean, and you were talking about, Sarah was talking about people being somewhere in some realm before they're conceived or born or whatever. And there was a Muslim who said to me that every fetus before they get implanted or whatever gets asked if they want to live. They get asked like a yes or no question. Do you want to go down
I say yes?
and go through the trial? I'm like, I doubt that. I don't think so.
If that's true,
if somebody asked me, I'm pretty sure I would have said no. So y'all, I was like, you're lying, because I promise you I would have said no. And the 3-year-old child who lives a short life and dies also would have said no. And half the people who have miserable lives, for no reason would have said
you
no.
Get to see your future shit? Like, you actually get to see what happens to you?
No, but didn't you say that you get to choose your parents?
No. Did I choose my parents? No, I would have chosen Bill Gates or some shit. Like, nah, I mean, what's funny? A lot of rich people don't have children. I guess not a lot of people choose them as parents. They only choose,
maybe.
No, I mean, it's such BS. Like, every single person didn't get asked if they wanted to go through the trial. And why would they say yes when they knew that one of the possible outcomes is ending up burning in hell? It's like, okay, I'm giving you the choice. You get to live out your life, but the conditions are that we're going to erase your memory, so you're not going to remember anything. You have to somehow find your way to the quote truth. So you have to get a hold of a Quran or somehow find Islam, and then you have to abide by the rules of it, praying 5 times a day and doing all the things that are required to be able to get to heaven. And it's like, that's a really heavy wager. Like,
oh, and also,
if
can I
this
say
was
another thing?
a casino, I would be like, no, I'm not taking those odds. Like, hell, you do any little thing, you end up in hell. To get to heaven, you have to do so much. I don't like those odds. No one would say
yes.
Can
I say one other thing? It's just real quick. Okay, you get asked before you're even born, but you don't have any experience in life. You're basically like this. You have like one thought. Like basically, it's like asking a little baby, like someone who, like a little kid that doesn't have any experience in life, hey, do you want this or do you want this? They might choose the bad thing, because they don't know. They have no experience in life. A soul, if it's a brand new soul, it doesn't matter if they see their whole future, because they have no like real emotions. They have nothing. Like they have no experience. They don't feel
it's just such
sadness.
a silly claim. I don't even know like who really honestly believes that.
Man, I feel so sad when I watch like Ali Dawa and all these people explaining stuff, and it's like, oh my god, like,
did you hear that cringe replay? Oh my gosh, Ali Dawa.
Yes.
Do you notice something that like his physical appearance changed so much when he grew that like what is it? What are those people? Amish beard. Yeah, he grew that like Amish beard, and like he just looks so different. He's been like, started wearing kohol, and it just makes him look like he has bags under his eyes. And I saw this picture of him from like when he was really young, and I was like, wait, who is that? Like I feel sad, because I feel like he might have actually been kind of cute if he wasn't like curse me, like excuse me, but he would have been cute, but he wouldn't have been so ugly. sorry.
Hey, remember that guy that used to be really religious? The guy that I dated, he used to be religious, but when I dated him, he wasn't religious. Remember him? Yeah.
I think that's something that you're going to be noticing, though. Is I notice it now, like when like Islamic scholars are like on the news, and I'm like, boy, I knew you when you were a troublemaker. I knew you when you were sleeping around with all these white girls. Like I knew you then. All of a sudden, you had this epiphany, and you're a sheikh now. Fuck off.
Yeah, until they enjoy their life and do whatever the fuck they want, and then they want to be chefs or whatever. But I was gonna say something about this dude that I used to date, and I saw a picture of him a long time ago when he was religious, and he had kuhl on, and I thought, like, I was like, you were emo, weren't you? And you just used that as an excuse, like. Like, yeah, because I feel like he really wanted to wear eyeliner because he has like really nice eyes or whatever, and he just like wanted to accentuate them.
No,
and
actually, I really don't even know who you're talking about right now. I can't guess.
I'm talking about the guy that I dated,
I know
blonde guy.
The blonde guy.
The blonde guy, yes.
I'm trying so hard. We have nicknames for everyone.
John.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw a picture of him when he was religious because I didn't know him when he was religious, and he was wearing eyeliner, and I was like
thinking of all the wrong people.
Yeah, I came up to him one day and I was like, I saw an old picture of you wearing eyeliner, and then he was like, no, that's not eyeliner, that's Kohl. And I said, yeah, eyeliner and stuff. And then I was like, hey, because he liked.
It has been an hour and they're still talking about if Aisha was mine in the chat.
That's important.
They're not even paying attention to us. They're just like, some people say.
Okay. Let's maybe let's bring it back and be like, guys, can you stop talking about Aisha in the chat and start asking us questions, please?
Yeah. We're opening up the panel, you guys. If you want to ask Nulli or I or anyone a question, drop your questions right now. Let's see if anyone's even still listening.
I'm making ramen, so go ahead, you guys.
Making ramen. Yeah. Somebody said, did you hit puberty at 9? Obviously not. But I do know some people who did. And we can get into the biological reasons why girls
there's like hormonal factors as well. So like a lot of food nowadays that has a lot of hormones added into them affecting genetically people. If you would like to know specifically, I was 12.
I was 15 or like almost 16 when I got it.
Yeah. There's a question here that says, Nulli, was your father Muslim? So my stepdad was. I have nothing to do with my biological father. I never did.
You never met him, or?
Well, my mum left him when I was like a baby, so no. Apparently he was abusive, but I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Don't trust my mother.
Yeah, my mom left my dad when I was like 3, so I still knew him and stuff, but he didn't raise me. Like, if you want to talk about father figure, like, it was my stepdad.
Yeah, my father figure was my stepdad. He was the only father I knew. I called him Abi. I called him Baba. I called him Abu. Like that's what I called him. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So Baden's real husband. Hi. I remember you.
Ansar.
Oh, yeah, it's Ansar. When are you gonna change your screen name, dude? You're not Zubaydah's husband.
Forget about her. She ain't good for you.
I mean, he doesn't have to leave Zubaydah, but he can get at least a second and third wife.
Man, get you another wife. Anyways,
like that's our only question, apparently.
Yeah, I was gonna say something about the Ebi thing. Okay, I remember when my mom married my stepdad, and he tried to force me to call him like Baba or Ebi or whatever. But my dad had died when I was a kid, and I hadn't used that term ever. Like, it was weird to me, and he tried to force me. And I remember like calling him. I didn't give him a name because he tried to force me to call him Baba or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I did this passive aggressive thing where I would just like every time I addressed him, I would be like, "Hey." Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. Like,
because at first I was calling him like Ammo, and he didn't.
Ammo, yeah.
Yeah, and then he didn't really like that because he wanted me to call him dad, and I was like, I will not disrespect my dead father for you. Fuck you, bitch. And I know that if my real dad was still alive, like, I would have had a completely different life because I know that my real dad was actually really nice. It's just that he died before I had a chance to be with him, grow up.
And maybe something that had to do with that was, do you know the age difference between your mom and your dad?
I think it's like 25 years or something.
What? So he was much older than her.
Yeah, much older than her.
Oh.
But he was very nice. Like, he was a professor. He was like educated and stuff. Like,
no, I'm not saying in a bad way. Like, oh, he was better. I meant, there's a cultural thing about like, guy, you gotta try to get with the youngest girl, and
but also my mom wasn't very young when she they didn't get married. like my mom was working and doing a lot of things, and
she
got
wasn't
married
the
at
youngest.
probably like 20. Like I think she got married at like 26 or 27 or something like that, which
but then on top
not
of
that bad.
that, you were the youngest of your siblings, so you were like, you already had like what, a 7-9 year difference. So even from the time that she married him, by the time you were born, she was much older. So therefore he was much older.
Exactly.
So that's one of the harms in an older guy marrying a much younger woman, is like, yeah, sorry, he's gonna be like 70 and his kids are barely through high school, and he's gonna like pass away while and leave her to raise the kids, like,
I mean,
without
I
a
think
dad.
that if he was still alive right now, I think he would be like 80 something years old right now.
Jeez.
See,
And,
that's something I've
I'm in
always
my
kind of
20s.
had. Like, I see with even like not even like Muslims, like I was talking, like, let's just talk about everyone generally. Like, I kind of see people who are like starting to have their kids in like their 40s or like 45, and I'm kind of like, that's way too old, because you're not going to be able to like see your child grow up. Like, by the time you're that, like, okay, by the time your kid's
I think it's
10,
almost cruel to do to your kid.
Yeah. Like, by the time your kid's like 10, say you had your kid 45, by the time your kid's 10, you're 55 years old. Like, you can't run around with them. You can't, you just can't do any of that. And I'm like really kind of, I've already said to, like, with my partner, I'm like, look, once I think like 30 is like my cutoff. I'm not having kids after 30, because my body starts degrading after 30.
And no, it's true. My dad is 50 something. I don't even know, but he had another, just keeps having children. He had another kid recently. He has a kid who's probably 2 and another who's 4, and he's like already probably 52, and he's not gonna see them grow, like, be my age probably.
Yeah.
So that's like,
I'm kind of
that's like a mean thing to do to them, but
yeah, I guess. But then also some people don't, especially I guess with like Muslim guys, fathers and that, they don't. Some of them is not like that fatherly bond with their kids, because they don't really raise them. They don't run around with them. It's just like they're the king of the house, and the kids just obey. I guess that could also potentially be a thing. I think people in the chat don't like us. No one wants to ask us questions. I'm disappointed.
Oh, I see some questions that we
never coming back.
It says, did you drink a shit ton of beer when you left Islam?
I don't drink
hate
alcohol.
Beer. Oh my god, thank you. I'll drink wine is good, vodka mixed with stuff, but like beer is nasty. Hey, you have to get a taste for it. But I will say something though, like, I don't advocate, this is one of like those habits that carry over even after you're an ex-Muslim. You have 2 options. You can either go crazy and do all the things that you couldn't do, or you can still kind of be chill and just live your life, still trying to be like, a good person. Or see, the reason that I don't drink a lot of alcohol is because it does kill your brain cells if you drink it a lot, frequently, and over a long term. So if you
I just don't drink alcohol because I don't like the taste of alcohol, and I don't like drunk people.
Well, you have to get introduced to some good tasting ones then. Oh my gosh, don't let me take you out.
One time I went to a lounge, and I mean, I didn't even order this. Like, I was with my friends or whatever, and they got like rosé and like beer and stuff, and I hated that shit. It was gross. But then these boys, they sent us these little shots, and I looked at them and I was like, ew, they're probably disgusting. And then I tasted them, and they tasted like orange juice or peach juice, and I was like, oh, this is what I need in my life. This is the thing that I need to drink all the time. This is my favorite thing ever. But I don't know what it's called. I'm so sad. Can someone tell me?
No, I mean, there's actually so many good tasting alcohols out there. You just have to find them, and don't hang out with like super burly manly men who want to make you drink like stuff that'll put hair on your chest. You have to hang out with like feminine chicks, girls' night out. Trust
Sex in
me.
the City type of shit, like Samantha and
Cosmopolitans, and yeah, there's some good
Muslim Abdul Ludabar would like to ask me a question, apparently.
Yeah, just pop it in the chat.
Can you please tell me the difference between Anas bin Malik and Malik bin Nas? Anas bin Malik is the man that narrated the hadith. He's like one of the top. There's Abu Huraira and Aisha, like the most people who narrated hadith. I don't understand why he's trying to ask me.
Because
he's trying to test you because he said don't Google it, so he's testing you.
Well, I didn't
see if you're a real ex-Muslim or something. But it's okay if you think you're a bunch of phonies. You can. I mean, you don't have to stay here.
Is that proof enough? نتكلموا بالعربي هلا يلا.
Mashallah, tabarakallah. So Abdul Lutfa, I would like to know, what point are you trying to prove? Like, what are you trying to prove? Because if you were to go onto a Muslim, ask any Muslim, most of them aren't going to know.
Yeah, they won't even know.
Most people don't even know who like Abu Hurairah is. Most of the people don't know who Salama is. Most people don't know who Jafar ibn Abi Talib is. Most people don't know who any of these like prominent Muslims are. Most people don't know who they are, you know. Who are, ask her, who are the 10 blessed Sahaba promised the paradise? Mate.
Okay, this is not the type of questions that we meant to ask. All right,
what are you trying to prove? Like, what are you trying to prove?
When we said ask questions, we didn't mean let's turn this into an Islamic studies class. I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen. Nope, we're not letting that happen.
Forget the Islamic proving crap. Tell us your most recent sexual experience. That is an inappropriate question.
Oh, I just saw who asked that. How dare you? Oh, we are having words.
I'm not attacking Islam, mate. I'm saying that Islam wants to kill apostates and I'd like to not be killed.
F Islam.
Oh, yeah, I love it. He said you claim you used to be Muslim. No one has to claim. Look, it's not that hard to tell someone who's never actually been Muslim from a person who was raised Muslim from birth and who didn't convert, whose parents were converts. And sorry
to just interrupt. Mohsin, is this person claiming that fiqh changes? Because if this person is claiming fiqh changes, we just need to give up and just ignore this person.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just like, I mean, you know, honestly, this is to be expected. There's always going to be people
of course.
Who are like, yeah, no.
I'm not sure if you guys saw, but I had this guy on Twitter was commenting, and he was like, he makes like these little infographics, and he, oh my God, tell me in detail how many rak'ahs are in Isha Salat.
In detail, do you mean you want me to recite the Fatiha and the extra surahs after it?
And each
how many rakats? I think there are 25. And you can quote me on that.
I can recite them if you guys want.
Fajr has 2.
I didn't memorize them.
Wait, let's be specific. Let's be specific, ladies. How many sunnah prayers are with each of these? Let's see if we can go that far.
It's just so embarrassing. It's like, look, okay, if you want to believe that there's a conspiracy and there's a bunch of fake ex-Muslim, that's fine. But I want to put this in perspective for you, sir, because there are a lot of people who seem to believe that ex-Muslim is a new thing, and it's not a new thing, because ex-Muslim is actually just apostate. And if ex-Muslim was a new thing, then there wouldn't be rules about it dating back to the time of Muhammad. So now that we have that out of the way, there were ex-Muslims during the time of Muhammad. This is not a new thing. Exactly. Okay, we do exist.
If there's no such thing as ex-Muslim is just a new term. However, if there was no such thing, why is there actually a division of what murtad is? You don't have just murtad, yeah? You have murtad fitri, which are people who have been born Muslim and leave the Islam. And then you have murtad milli, which are people who convert to Islam and leave Islam. Now, if ex-Muslims weren't a thing or a real thing, then how is that an actual thing?
Yeah, we have definitions and categories. I'm sorry, dude. Like, you know, if you want to disprove something, like, you can go somewhere else with that. That's not what this is about. So we're taking questions from people who have actual questions. So from now on, I'm sorry, like, we're not going to actually pay any attention to this person anymore.
If you, my advice to anyone out there, if you are a Muslim and you want to get into a philosophical debate, there are plenty of ex-Muslims out there who will discuss these things with you. There's plenty of ex-Muslims out there who will I'm more than happy to go along with that. And to be honest, I used to do that and I just kind of got over it because you know what, I'm sick of like hearing the same arguments over and over and over again. Go and check out. I think right now there's a live show happening on Abdullah Samir's account. And it's pretty sure it's a live show. So if you're wanting, you can jump over there and you can go and harass them because now we're just talking about people. But yeah, like I said, if anyone does have any questions, ask them. I'm happy to answer most stuff.
I love how he said at Arabic words, it says Abu Suhair, but yeah, some people can't see the text.
Abu Suhair,
Marquis.
Yeah. It's funny because like I remember I learned the American alphabet at 5 and I learned the Arabic alphabet at 6. So that was like one of the first things. I was like learning to read them both at the same time. And like I should have been, but don't. Actually, we already know you speak Arabic.
I think it's also like a factor as well is like a lot of people get shocked because I literally know like if you see me in like real life, I'm like a white person, I've got blue eyes, but then when I speak Arabic, I sound like an Arab, and like I can say like maghains and mawwa and marat like perfectly, and then I'm like, well, it's because I was taught it from when I was a freaking child, so of course I can speak it.
I mean, that's actually pretty cool. Like that's a cool power to have, you know, like nobody can suspect you of knowing Arabic, and then you're just like, what did you say?
I used to do it all the time with Somalians. Like they'd be talking shit, and they'd be like, "Oh, this Adanyo Nayahe," and I'd be like, "What are you talking about me for? Why? Like it's like, what do you want from me?"
I know only like one Somali word, and it's like, "What do you?"
Oh, what do ya?
So
Waria is like you boy, and Naya is you girl.
Yeah, like I heard it a lot when I was in the Islamic school. Like, what do ya, whatever. It's like, okay, cool, like whatever that is. Yeah.
It's funny when people like trying to talk in different languages in front of people. Like, I never assume what language a person knows because you can't tell just by looking at them.
Yeah, so, like for example, for example, I have this experience because right now I'm in a Muslim country right now, and I
saw one of my co-hosts for the Heretics Corners just popped in the red mutard.
Welcome.
Yeah,
his name's awesome. Dean.
Oh, okay, because I didn't know his name like you said earlier.
Yeah, it's Dean. Yeah,
I don't know. So yeah, we're not really getting any.
Oh no, that's a really good question I've just seen here. What are you guys going to do about siblings still stuck being Muslim, or is it complete cut off from family?
Okay. Do you wait? First of all, how many siblings do you have, Nulli?
7.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty good number. I have like 17. So I know, just a little bit more.
I have 2.
Yeah, it's all good.
I'm not included in this mini sibling club.
It's not a contest.
Okay. You don't have your own tribe, okay? I have my own tribe, and so does.
Actually,
it was a lonely childhood, topic, to be honest, because I had 2 older brothers, and therefore
you don't have any girls. That sucks. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about this actually. So when I first apostated basically, and I'll just say like I actually watched a lot of videos debunking like Christianity claims, and that was actually the turning point for me because it goes back to like what Sara was saying about how they have so many things in common, and then people like don't like to say that they have so many things in common, but they really do. But I kind of had my guard down because I was like, oh, this is about Christianity, it doesn't apply to me. Wait a minute, this is the same story. And so when you talk about Noah's flood and Moses and all those old stories that are in common in the Bible and stuff, it's like those are the stories that Muslims are supposed to believe too. So that was like kind of the first thing, and it was a quick thing for me. I just like binge watched all these like atheist videos and debates and stuff until it clicked or whatever. And there's like a phase you go through, like right when you first leave, and you want other people to know the truth. So it wasn't like I was trying to force anyone you know, but I kind of just wanted to sprinkle the little idea, just like plant the idea, like maybe think about this. And so I might have come across too harsh though, because I have like I said, I have a lot of siblings, but I can't possibly talk to all of them. I'm not really connected like to all of them because most of them are half siblings. But I have a younger brother and younger sister like I still talk to. And, you know, when that first happened, I kind of like talked about religion to both of them, like separately, like over the phone. We had like a little conversation, and it was, I think, an overload of information for them, like an overload of ideas. And so they were like, I can't talk to her, like she's making me too confused, like she's giving me too many doubts. So they kind of like didn't talk to me for a couple months, but you know, thankfully it wasn't forever. And then after that I was like, well, it's okay, they're not harming anyone with their beliefs, so I'm not gonna push the matter or anything like that, because I wasn't trying to push the matter. It's just kind of like at the point where they know where I stand, like they pretty much know that I'm an atheist, or that like I don't believe the same thing anymore. But so we didn't really talk about, you know, religion, except in a very vague thing. And then a couple months later, my younger brother called me, and he asked me what made you like distance from religion. And I think he was expecting a certain answer. He was expecting me to say that, you know, there was a traumatic event, or an emotional reason. It had something to do with my childhood, or that I didn't like, or, you know, I left because I wanted to date, or I wanted to do things I wasn't allowed. And my answer was so different from what he was expecting, because I was like, it has to do with the teachings and ideology and how logically certain things don't make sense. And that I actually researched and refreshed my mind on a lot of ideas that I hadn't thought of for a long time, because sometimes when you're a Muslim and you're living in that bubble of other Muslims, there are things you don't even have to consider. So actually, I was probably more open to these new ideas because I had never been presented with them before. Like, I had never thought twice about evolution because nobody ever questioned me about evolution. I didn't have an education, so I never had a teacher who was saying, hey, evolution is a fact, you know, or anything like that. So I was just like, you know, bopping along, living in blissful ignorance or whatever. And then basically, you know, the point is going back to like siblings. So, I mean, we're still in contact. We're still cool. Like, everything's fine. They just know, like, not to bring up religion with me, and I don't bring up religion with them. But if they do, I'm like a lot more chill about it. And I'm like really calmly explain why, like, I believe a certain thing. And it never has to do with an emotional reason. You know, it's always something logical, like, oh yeah, you know, that makes sense. And it's not something that is gonna feel aggressive, like they're being attacked. But I think that it's totally possible to still be like peaceful and on good terms with Muslim family members, as long as they're the same way towards you. Like, yeah. As long as they're not the one attacking you.
I definitely think that is definitely, that's true. That's so true. My family is the complete opposite. So after I left home, I lived with like nothing. I had no clothes, no money, no nothing, right? And so I I ended up having no ID and no government documents. I didn't have birth certificate or passport, and that. So I ended up having to go back to my parents' house to get all that sort of stuff. And I rocked up to the house, no hijab. I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I knocked on the door, and one of my brothers opens it, and he was 13 at the time, and he's like, why are you here? And I was like, oh, is mum home, or is Hoya home? And he was like, no, you can't come in the house. You deserve to be raped and murdered. You're a traitor. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, thanks.
Wow.
Little fucker.
What a dude.
That's so...
And he was only 13 at the time. And I've always been convinced that brother's going to, like, I'm going to see him, like, to commit a terror attack or whatever. Like, he's very, like, he's been always like that, like, very strict in the religion. I've never seen my nieces or nephews. So I...
Wait a minute.
Because
are you the oldest?
Yes.
And they have children?
My second, like my first brother is the closest age to me. He has two children. He's 2 years younger than me.
Okay. Oh my God.
2024. Yeah.
Oh my God. No.
And
I'm kidding.
I remember I was like, oh, I'd like to come and visit you and your wife, because my brother this brother always tend to be a bit more like liberal. I always thought he was more like similar to me.
Okay.
And
Okay,
so I
that's
asked
good.
him, and I asked him like, oh, can I come see you and your wife and like your babies? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, is there a reason why? And he was like, oh, you know the reason. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, why? And he was like, because you've betrayed the family. And again, so that was that whole traitor thing. And then I just kind of like stopped talking to them, because it was like any communications I had always ended up in fights. And it wasn't even like I wouldn't talk religion about them. It was just like me trying to like build those connections and be like, please be happy how I'm living my life. Like, I'm not doing anything to anyone. I'm not doing anything bad. Like, I'm not hurting anybody. And about a year and a half ago, I got in touch with my sister, who is 19. And I was like, oh, let's go out for coffee. Let's try and meet up. And she put the niqab on at 14, but she'd taken it off. And I thought, okay, cool. She's like liberal. Like, the only reason she put it on was because she was like controlled by my mum, and she had discovered who she was. And so I took her out for coffee and we were chatting, and then she started like dropping these hints like, oh, she thinks things in Islam aren't good. Like, she doesn't think that it's fair that men can marry 4 wives, but women can't have 4 husbands, that men can marry non-Muslim women and that she can't marry a non-Muslim man. And I was sitting there going, oh my God, like I can talk to someone. Like I can, she can speak to me about her doubts. And then the conversation, I said, oh, well, do you have any other questions about Islam? And then she was like, oh, not really. She goes, but what did you find wrong about Islam? So I started explaining what I was. And I was like, I don't agree with slavery. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't agree with slavery either. Like, it's wrong. Like, we need to change Islam. Islam is to become better. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Like, I'll be able to I can like at least relate to my sister. And then she turns around and she goes, like, like with like people who leave Islam, like, in Australia, I wouldn't want you dead. But like, if you were in a Muslim country, I'd have to see you killed. And I was like, oh, I had hope.
Oh, why would she say that?
That's
Damn.
the other thing, when they bring up the country as if something suddenly becomes more or less moral or acceptable just because you cross an imaginary line. Exactly.
You know what's sad? I don't think that Somalia like they always believed in Islam. Like
no, they didn't. Like they were actually they were pagan worshippers. So before Islam came to Somalia, they were either pagan worshippers or they were Christians.
Man, going back to the pagan ways is better than this shit.
Yeah, so there's actually been like cave paintings discovered in Somaliland, so the top part of Somalia, and of like 4,000 or 5,000-year-old paintings of like cows and stuff like that, because that's what they used to worship. And it was so fascinating. And the problem is with Somalia is that they weren't actually always a religion nation. Like, they had a dictatorship who got rid of religion in the country altogether.
Oh.
And and then so obviously a lot of people, like, it's always happens. It's like what happened, like, I think it was at the same time the Islamic reform, except in Somalia it happened in the late 80s, and then he was kicked out, and then in the 90s a lot of people went back to Islam, and they grasped onto Islam, and they become very Arabicized because Saudi put a lot of money into the country. But yeah, so I think it's kind of sad because Somalia is an absolutely beautiful country, and the people are beautiful if you take the religion out of it.
Yeah, like a lot of people could be awesome if they could just remove Islam out of their life. Like, I also feel Islam is like a parasite in that.
That was so harsh the way you said that. Their potential, they could be so amazing.
No, I'm saying like they are beautiful. Like, I'm not talking about like the physical. I'm saying like they could be better. Like, for example, like Ethiopia, for example, like.
Oh no, I don't mean physically.
Yeah, like the Ethiopian people, they're Christians.
Whole time. I didn't even know.
I didn't see you.
No, because I have a lid that covers the camera.
Oh, that's good. That's
why
very wise of you.
Profile picture wasn't up.
That's right.
I
also saw a question from Marcin Lala saying, is Nulli afraid of getting backlash from family now or in the future, now that she's podcasting and stuff? Well, thankfully, the reason why I don't have my face up is because it is very recognizable. People who here know that I do this. My mum is fully aware that I do this. She just ignores it and doesn't talk to me, and she just told me that I'm betraying the family again and again and again. So I'm just like, whatever. But it is one of the reasons why I remain anonymous online. So I gave a speech at a conference, and I was there physically, and I spoke about ex-Muslim struggles and whatnot. So I don't have any necessarily backlash from family because, one, I don't give a flying fuck about them, and I don't care because I'm not a terrible person. I'm not a bad person or anything like that. So they shouldn't do anything to me. In fact, my mum is an advocate for people to go and fight jihad. So I'm just doing the opposite. So if she has a problem with me speaking about this, then she's being a hypocrite. Then our favorite commentator asked the question, but let's just ignore that one.
Wait, what did he ask?
He goes, what is your motivation for doing these Islamic-centric broadcasts? I personally don't think these are Islamic-centric. Mine is not Islamic-centric. Mine's not, let's hate on all Muslims. Muslims deserve to die, burn them. No. Mine is about ex-Muslim struggles. I think that if you want to leave Islam, you should be able to leave Islam, and no one should stop you. You shouldn't be ostracized. You shouldn't be disowned. You shouldn't be beaten. You shouldn't be tortured. You shouldn't be killed. You shouldn't be in prison. You shouldn't be any of that. That's why I speak about it. I can't speak for you, Lily.
Yeah, sorry. Obviously, you haven't seen some other videos on my channel, which
I've seen I have seen them, but
sometimes they look like they're like attacking Muslims. Like, I would never attack Muslims. Like, I think people misunderstand that because, like I mentioned earlier, like, my family members are Muslims. I personally relate with Muslims, and what I mean is that, like, I was hijabi for many years. Like, so when I see a hijabi girl, I don't have any like racist or hateful like thoughts towards her. Like, I actually kind of like, I won't go out of my way to try and talk to her, but I don't know, I have like this, I have mixed feelings. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I don't know you, I don't know anything about you, but you might be just like me, just like I was, or you might be different, or like a cool person. You might even be being forced to wear hijab. I don't know your story. I'm not going to make assumptions about you. And I was the first person who, like, I get mad when I'll hear something about somebody, ripping off a woman's hijab in the supermarket. I will get mad because y'all don't understand. There is safety pins involved, levers and pulleys. And I used to have a safety pin right by my neck. If somebody yanked my hijab off, that safety pin would like go into my neck and there would be fists flying. Like, y'all don't understand. I would never
like, if I see a Muslim woman being abused on the street, I will defend her.
Exactly.
I will.
Like,
if I see a Muslim yelling at if I see a person yelling at a Muslim woman saying, go back to your own country, and start abusing her, and that, I will defend her. I will get involved, and I'll say, no, that's her fucking right to wear a hijab. It's her fucking right to be a Muslim, as is my fucking right to be a non-Muslim and to be an ex-Muslim. That is my right to do so, and that's what I'm all about. Like, I think if you like, I don't have anything against your content. I looked briefly at your content, but for myself personally, I did have like an angry phase about Islam, and I did have many aggression towards Islam. I have no problem with Muslims.
Yeah, exactly. I would never attack like Muslims specifically and say all Muslims are like this. I might sometimes say things that sound like generalizations, but it'll go something like, oh, a big percentage of the population of Muslims, and I'll say like a statistic, a big percentage of Muslims are Sunni, or a big percentage of Muslims, believe or claim to believe in X, Y, and Z dogma. But I won't make generalizations about Muslims being violent or anything like that, because the majority of them, like, I don't think they are. And I'll say things about like Islamic teachings in general. Like, everybody knows, I'll talk about Islamic teachings till the cows come home, but that's not the same as attacking Muslims, and I would never do that because, like I said, I have sisters who like wear hijab, and I would never want someone to like attack them in the street or something. Like, and even if I didn't have sisters, like, I still, like, that's wrong or whatever. So,
there's an interesting question here. I have mentioned it briefly before on a Vidu's podcast, but it says, what imams do your family listen to, Nulli? So my family are big fans of Sheikh Faisal, the Jamaican from the UK. They're fans of Abu Hamza, the guy with like the claws and the missing eye from the UK. Anwar Awlaki was a constant person my parents listened to. Those are just like to name a few of the Islamic scholars they listened to. But yeah, so it's the same thing. It's like I don't like seeing my sisters to get abused. I don't like seeing like my mom. Like I was a niqabi in Melbourne, and I was living in one of the most racist and violent areas, and I had people tell me to go blow myself up. I've had people to tell me that I need to be killed. I've had people tell me to go back to my own country. I had all of that, but the thing is, I would also fight back, and then people get freaking confused by this Aussie accent coming out from behind the niqab. But like, I will defend anybody and their right to believe whatever they want to believe. And the other thing as well is, ex-Muslims wouldn't need to exist if Islam didn't say that they had to die or that they were to be ostracized, because there would be no need for the term ex-Muslim or murtad or any of those words if we didn't have to be killed.
And we probably wouldn't be so outspoken if we didn't feel that that Islam negatively impacted our lives in some big way. Because you'll see, okay, I like to draw the comparison between people who leave like a cult or something. When people are in a cult for like 20 years and they get out and they say, I was in this cult. And Muslims don't like when people call Islam a cult. But you have to admit that when you study cults, like deeply, like I have, because out of curiosity, you'll start to draw similarities. Oh, I can hear myself. And like, I'm sorry. So when something affects you, sometimes you want to talk about it. There's no therapy for like, you leave Islam. It's not like you have an instant resource in a community. And here's the other thing, Muslims have a community. They don't have all one community. They have like little different communities, and they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to have a sense of community. And guess what? Ex-Muslims, we should be allowed to have our community as well. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if we want to talk about it, we can talk about it. And, if we're growing and that, makes you uncomfortable, then maybe you should question why so many people who were Muslims, who truly believed in this, with all of their faith, why we feel so, it's not like we're betraying Islam, but we feel betrayed and we feel cheated. Like, I'm not going to say lied to, because you have to actually know the truth to tell a lie. But Jem, where am I going with this?
If you don't know, Dean or the Red Murtad has asked you a question, Lily. Yes. He says, how do you feel about modesty culture, gender segregation, male guardianship, etc.? Do women in Islam get a choice about these things?
Male guardianship, I can't say too much about, because I just live in America and I didn't have personal experience with anything about that. But modesty culture, oh my gosh, it's so counterintuitive. It says the exact opposite of what it claims to do. Like, I like to make a joke. They bring up this story, right? You give a guy 2 lollipops, and you take the wrapper off one and you throw them both on the floor, and then you pick them up and you say, which one would you rather have? The dirty uncovered one or the one that has a protection? The hijab, the wrapper of the lollipop is like the woman's hijab. It protected her from the dirt on the floor. Okay. That's very simplistic. I don't know that I would want my boyfriend throwing me on the floor like a lollipop. No, but like, is this really what it does? Does it? I can tell you let me see. I want to say definitely more than 10 years of wearing the hijab. Only once has it protected me, and that was when this big ass grasshopper landed on my head, and I was like so glad that it didn't touch my hair. Other than that, like that's such a silly comparison to make, because if you don't drop the lollipop on the floor, then you won't have to worry about it getting dirty. Like,
also, when it falls on the ground, you can just
analogy.
wash it. You can just wash it with water. And
I mean, it's just like you can't compare a woman to a lollipop, like, because there's other contingencies. So
hey, I just made a comparison of a woman who has been dropped on the floor. You know what I mean? Like, you can just pick her up and wash her.
You can take a shower. Like, no, it's so silly. So, you know, the problem with that, with those types of widespread stories, because I heard this little analogy when I was young too, and I was like, oh, you know, I'm a child, I'm not going to think too much of it. I was like, thankfully I never told anyone that, because I would have felt stupid.
We actually had there was a sheikh in Australia, I think he was like the mufti, and he said women are like a steak. If you leave it out in the sun, the flies will come and get it. But if you keep it covered, it'll be fine.
Well, I mean, it will get rotten after a while, though, if you don't put it in the refrigerator.
He meant I meant guardianship as in how Muslim women aren't allowed to talk to non-mahrams, etc.
I mean,
I
don't agree with, like,
do you think it's acceptable? Do you think it's acceptable that you can't be in the same room as your cousin because he might want to fuck you?
Oh my God, you have a story about that, don't you?
Yeah, didn't I just mention that like the other day? That's creepy. I was in a room with my cousin or whatever, and you know what I'm gonna say is that when anything they sexualize will, like, just make it worse and make it more awkward. So I wasn't even attracted to my cousin. Like, I saw him as my cousin. We weren't, like, related. But wait, when did I talk about this? I don't remember. But shit, my mind. Like, I had a cousin who used to come over, and he was the same age as me, and it was almost like they wanted us to get together. Like, they were, like, pushing him to be attracted to me and me to be attracted to him, and it's like they wanted us to get married or whatever, because my stepdad would say, like, you know, I have the perfect person to marry you when you grow up, and you know, and then he would say
my God,
cousin's name, and I knew he played it off like it was a joke, and I knew it wasn't a joke. Like, I knew he was trying to get a reaction out of me, and I'm like, you're disgusting, I'm a child. Like,
wait
I was like a preteen.
Is it that guy that that guy?
The one that commented on my page
that
9 times. No, it wasn't him. It wasn't.
Okay,
oh my
because
gosh.
I was like, he's not cute. So
no,
anyways,
it wasn't.
You deserve way better.
It was you're funny. Anyway, we're getting off topic. So I will say something. Okay. I didn't even know that cousin marriage was allowed in Islam, like, for a long time, I guess, till I was like, 9. I started to be older and hurt. And I remember I went over to my grandma's house this one time, and like all my cousins were there, and I took my hijab off, and then like my dad like barked at me, and he was like, "What are you doing? Put that back on." And I was like, "Why? There's no one here. There's only family members." And then my sister was like, "Didn't you know you can marry cousins in Islam?" I was like, "No, I didn't know that." Ew. Yeah, I'm like, these are like my brothers. Y'all are sick. Y'all are creepy. Like, and it was so weird because it was a contrast of having like my family and my parents and immediate family Muslim, but then my extended family weren't. So my grandma and aunts and uncles and cousins weren't Muslim, like I said before. So for them, how do I explain that, like, I just had, I was just normal, and then I had to go in the room and cover myself, and then to come out and be like, I'm so sorry, but I can't show my hair in front of your sons because they're potential sexual candidates. Like, that's creepy. It's alienating from my other family members, because I even, when I was in my grandfather's funeral, who, like I said, his side of the family was Christian, all of the all of my cousins and aunts and uncles and stuff had, like, there was a bouquet of roses, and everyone had to grab one rose and throw it in the grave before burial. And one of my parents, I don't know if it was my mom or grandma or someone, said, don't do that. Like, it might be a Christian thing. So I wasn't allowed to throw a rose into my grandfather's grave. And just little things like that like stick with you, and it's like alienating because you're so paranoid that something is not going to be good enough for Allah. That imagine how that must have looked to my aunts, who were like, this disrespectful little bitch didn't throw the flower in, like she must have not loved him or something. Like, it's creepy, it's weird, and it's isolating, especially when your extended family isn't Muslim. But that's still off topic, and it's not even the question. But I feel like my stance is obvious. Like, when it comes to guardianship and mahrams, and like, should girls be like not allowed to talk to guys? Like, no, I do think they should. And I'm not saying that I don't see the harm in a girl just talking to. Okay, let me backtrack. I think there are things that are obvious and common sense and sensible, and religion should have nothing to do with it. So for example, if I had a daughter and she was like, hey, can I go over to this boy's house? I'm going to want to know everything about that boy, who's going to be there, his parents going to be there. Like, it depends on how old she is, how old he is, everything. Because I don't want like a situation to happen. So it's that seems like common sense. It's not like I need some ancient rules to tell me. Let me scroll down and see what people have been saying.
Is it awkward that you can't shake hands?
Oh my gosh, it's so awkward.
So when I left home, I was the most socially not awkward. I was like socially retarded.
Yes.
I didn't know how to be alone in a room with a guy. I didn't know how to speak to a guy, really. I didn't know how to shake his hands. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't even know how to dress myself properly. Like, let's be real. Because all I lived at home were like long shirts and skirts or abayas. So it's like, I didn't know how to even like do anything. So yeah, shaking hands was like this really awkward thing.
Shaking hands.
Even to this day, I'm still a bit like, oh, am I doing this right? Is it too tight? Is it too hard? Is it too soft?
Shook a dude's hand, and he was like, "Oh, you have a strong grip." I was like, "Oh, is that a bad thing?" I thought guys were supposed to be the ones that grip. I was like, I don't know. I want to say like 12, and one of the landlord came over, and he was very like friendly with my grandma and stuff, and he put his hand out, and I shook it because it's so fucking rude when somebody puts their hand out and you just leave them hanging. And it's like that just flies right over the head of like my mom and anyone who sees, right? Because I shook his hand. Oh my gosh, why did I shake his hand? My grandma like yanked me to the side and was like scolding me so much. You're not allowed to shake a man's hand, because I'm 12 years old and I might give him a freaking hard on just from shaking my hand.
I know some Muslim women who will go so far as when they're shopping and paying for groceries, they'll put the money on the counter, and then when the person goes to give it back, they'll indicate for them to point at the counter. Mm-hmm. So like they actually don't even touch, even chances of them touching fingertips happens.
Yes, because they're afraid that they'll break their wudu if a woman touches them, like if her fingertip touches you. She's so filthy that a single skin cell of her will break your wudu. Like, it's
Jeez, how long have we been going for? 2 hours?
Oh shit, almost 2 hours. Yeah, you know what? We can wrap up. We can actually.
Let's wrap up.
It's fine. Oh, Sarah's not talking.
Can I plug myself?
Of course. Yeah? Go for it.
My name is Nulli, aka the Nullifidian. I have Twitter at the Nullifidian. I have Tumblr, thenullifidian.tumblr.com. I have Facebook, the Nullifidian. I have a WordPress, the nullifidian.wordpress.com. Also, I'm a host on the Heretics Corner, which is Heretics Corner at Heretics Corner. On YouTube, Heretics Corner. On WordPress, hereticscorner.wordpress. On Tumblr, hereticscorner.tumblr.com.
Your own like YouTube separate from Heretics Corner.
I do. It has like one video on it. It's called The Woman's Place in Islam.
Okay. But as a final thought, I'll just say that I think that modesty culture accomplishes the exact opposite. When you like put all this emphasis of covering a woman, it's because you're implying that there's something sexual that you're trying to cover, and it makes the guy think more about the sexuality. And even like the niqab, some guys, or like non-Muslim guys in pop culture, will be like, it makes me so curious. I want to see what's underneath. Is she is she like she must be some profound beauty that she's hiding. It almost makes them think, like, have higher expectations of what your looks are going to be, and have such high expectations in general. She's going to be this amazing, like, you know, an unbelievable, inconceivable person. And then of course there's no way that you can live up to those expectations, so you're going to have all types of problems, like if you do get married as a niqabi or something. Okay. Yes. Sarah, you still there? Anything to say?
Nothing.
Okay.
I'm just listening.
All right. Yeah, we are gonna actually end it, and me and Sarah are gonna do another live stream next week, possibly on a Thursday. I'll schedule it in advance, and as of now, we don't have any guests scheduled, but if anyone maybe wants to be a guest, they can message me directly. I have Twitter now at Lily Cuervo Logic, and I have my email written in the description as well, so I take direct emails and stuff. And if anyone ever wants to have a Google Hangout, I love doing Google Hangouts calls, so I'll take messages on that too. You can, like I said, message me, email me, message me on Twitter, whatever, and we can get something going. Okay? It was so much fun, and thank you everyone who stayed up late.
Thanks for letting me come on.
It was fun. For anyone who stayed up late, because I know the time zones are all wacky and stuff. And I can't wait to watch the next few episodes of Heretics Corner.
It's exciting. Next week's episode, it has Yasmin Mohammed and Jimmy Bangesh on it. So it's exciting. Yeah.
I really watched that. Subscribe to her shit. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Peace.
We're ending it.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.